Amidst the Everglades and orange groves of Central Florida lies the venerable Sebring International Raceway. Its twists, turns, and especially its bumps have tested man and machine since the first race was held on the converted airfield circuit back in 1950. And today it plays host to the penultimate round of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America season. Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Marine. Amanda Busick is in the pit lane. Calvin Fish is alongside. A fantastic racetrack, Calvin, with a lot of history. It's great to be here.
It certainly is. It's been a 12-year break since we were last here, but yesterday's racing was simply spectacular. And if we see more of the same here today, we're in for quite the show.
Let's head down to the pit lane and welcome in Amanda Busick.
Well, good afternoon, guys. And you'll remember we stood in front of this pit box yesterday, and it was empty from an incident of Michael Dinan during qualifying. This car didn't even get to race yesterday. Well, there was one part that they needed that wasn't on the trailer, and it was flown down yesterday all the way from Massachusetts. It made it to the racetrack at 10 p.m. last night. They were able to fire the engine at 11 p.m. just ahead of curfew and did a hardship lap this morning. The team owner, Will Turner, has his fingers crossed that things go well today. The other pro car that had issues yesterday was the number 33 of Windward Racing. It was a power steering issue. They were able to replace that pump and pull 3 test laps yesterday during race number 1. But they will be across from, they start from the pole, they will be across from the car right here of Wright Motorsports, Fred Pordat and Jan Halen. Guys, they could wrap up the championship here today, but it was a spicy battle between Jan Halen and Dennis Lin yesterday in that Lamborghini. Jan had some choice words during our interview and even went to Dennis after the race. I spoke to TR3 this morning. They're not worried about it, and Jan said he's going to make sure that Dennis stays far enough behind him, guys, but it is hot and spicy here in Sebring as we kick off race number 2.
As you would expect in Florida, really exciting race yesterday sets the stage nicely for race 2 of the weekend here today. Sebring International Raceway playing host to SRO America for the first time since 2009, closing in on the green flag. We heard about the drama in the race yesterday. Highlights from race 1 will be coming up here shortly. But some of that perhaps carrying over from race 1 to race 2, Calvin.
Yeah, and here we see the start of yesterday's race. It was a K-Pax front row there. Caldarelli getting the jump on his teammate Venturini. And then there's a battle between 2 Lamborghinis with TR3 on their pro racing debut here. Here you see Giacomo Altoe making that move. Scary moment here for Michael Cooper as the number 6 car exits pit lane.
He had his hands full, but was able to save it. Unfortunately, their race ended early yesterday. Good battle here between 2 out-of-class cars. Compass Racing, a Pro-Am car, and the Am-Class entry from AF Corsa. Here's one of the scary moments of the race as Dakota Dickerson made his move. Wasn't quite enough to get past a couple of cars he was battling with for position. At the front of the field, though, once again, K-Pax Racing, Jordan Pepper, Andrea Caldarelli, yet another win, and that effectively locked down the championship for that duo that has controlled this season from the very get-go back in Sonoma.
Yeah, very spectacular season for those drivers. 8 wins now in the championship season. Locks up the title, takes the pressure off, but they've got a severe task in front of them here today. They start from 4th position on the grid.
Exactly so. It's a totally mixed up grid from the way the race played out yesterday. Drivers that started the race yesterday, they'll go second here today in this 90-minute race format. Pit stop right around the halfway mark inside a mandatory window. Tire and fuel changes a must, of course, along with that driver change. But it's an interesting front row with Jan Halen of Wright Motorsports and Mikel Grenier of Windward Racing taking the top 2 spots. Jordan Pepper will start in 3rd, but Dakota Dickerson, very impressive. He qualified 4th.
He was so quick here yesterday, was putting the pressure on for that Pro-Am win, and Jan Halen didn't want to give it up, and then we had Dennis Lin getting into the mix as well, and I think that's what got Jan Halen fired up in his post-race interview with Amanda.
Now it's also fresh blood into the championship. Dennis Lin, the current British GT3 points leader, coming over on last-minute call-up duties as TR3 Racing jumped into the pro ranks for the first time all season long. He's paired with Giacomo Altoe, and that car has been fast through a couple of practice sessions. Didn't qualify quite like we or they expected. Dennis Lind will start that car in 6th here. You won't be able to miss it. The bright white Lamborghini from TR3 Racing. Expect them to be very much in the mix as we get set to go racing at Sebring International Raceway. Last-minute checks underway on the grid. The teams taking this final time to get the driver strapped in, make sure all of the electronics are hooked up correctly, radio and cool suit, things of that nature. About to turn them loose for 90 minutes of racing at one of the toughest tracks you'll ever find.
You will, and Madison Snow there aboard the Zalus machine. Very impressive performance this weekend, coming off a podium run here yesterday. He's had success here at Sebring in the 12-hour race. Here's our champions in the AMCOR category. JC Sada alongside Conrad Grunwald. Been very impressive, but they finally got beat yesterday by a new effort that we're seeing an entry in that AM division.
Yes, Triarsi Competizione, local team from the Orlando area. They have a lot of experience racing in single-make Ferrari racing series, but stepping into GT3 at the pro level for the first time, very impressive yesterday. And like you said, for the first time, of course, denied a victory in the AM class all season long. Conrad Grunwald and JC Sada have already clinched that championship. This has been the championship leaders as far as the pros are concerned. Jordan Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli, a near perfect season, but some work to do if they're going to win this race.
Yeah, certainly some really strong cars right ahead of them. Jan Halen will start from the pole in the Pro-Am entry. You got Mikel Grenier, one of the pro cars, Winwood Racing, as Amanda alluded to, had that power steering issue yesterday. So we didn't see their race pace, but boy, single lap pace was really impressive here yesterday morning.
And that's been the case for this car all weekend long as well. Jan Halen behind the wheel right now, and also in our Porsche track preview.
Hi, my name is Jan Halen with the Porsche Track Preview here at Sebring International Raceway. Onto the front stretch here at a bumpy Sebring racetrack. Into turn 1, 5th gear, high-speed corner, quick step on the brake, 4th gear, back to power. Using up all that track here on the exit, trying not to drop a wheel in the dirt. Into turn 3, down the 2nd gear, left, right, left, into turn 5. Very low grip here at the start of the weekend. Big corner here, big exit onto that back stretch, and then into turn 7, which is one of the slowest corners on the track, 45 mile an hour, so a great opportunity to make some moves. Braking deep here at the 300, down the 1st gear, good apex there, and then back to power, through the S's and into turn 10. Turn 10 again, a hard brake zone, into 2nd gear, and a very bumpy braking here. Hard on the brakes, down the 2nd, and then back to power in this long, into this long left-hander, really fun corner. Flat out, 3rd, 4th, and then into a tricky brake zone, braking and turning at the same time. Into tower here, using up all that exit, 2nd, 3rd, and then into Bishop, which is one of the quickest corners on the track. 5th gear, flat out, and then into the brake zone for 15. Hard on that apex curb right, using up all the track, apex curb left, and then back on the curb here at the apex of 16, using up all the track coming onto the back straightaway. One of the most important corners on the track, long straightaway following that turn 16, and then into 17, super fun corner, very bumpy on entry and exit, late on the brakes here, close to the end of the wall. Very bumpy here under the bridge, as you can see, and then back to power, trying to run up as close as you can to that exit wall and back onto the front straightaway.
That's a look at Sebring International Raceway. The cars on the formation lap now, the first of 2 as we close in on the green flag. It's been a good weekend for Wright Motorsports all in all. Closing in on clinching that Pro-Am championship, Calvin. It's definitely very much in the picture here today. The car in the back of the shot right there, the Racer's Edge Acura, that's the one that they need to keep their eyes on. But it's pretty simple for Jan Heijwen and Fred Poordad. They need to finish 5th, and the rest takes care of itself.
Top 5 will clinch it even if Taylor Hagler and Dakota Dickerson should come through and score another class victory. So it's pretty much on their side, but they want victories, and you know that Jan Heijwen, he wants more than that. He'd love an overall win here today. So he needs to get that lead. He's going to have a lot of competition from the front row. The Mercedes looks quick. Dakota Dickerson, he was so impressive here yesterday, and that team looking for their 3rd win on the season as well.
And one thing to keep an eye on, too, is the pace of the Acuras across the duration of a tire stint. We saw deep into the run, both the Dakota Dickerson-driven car and the one that Matt McMurray is driving just behind Compass Racing entering that machine. They both seem to come to life the deeper into the stint they went.
They did. It seems like both the teams have good setups on their race cars. Racer's Edge have a lot of time here. That's where they had their driving academy graduates do their seat time for a 2-day test here during the off-season. So for Taylor Hagler, she got important seat time, as did Dakota Dickerson. And for the team as well, they got important setup information. And also Taylor ran in a TCR race here earlier this year at the 12-hour event and finished on the podium here, so she should feel comfortable. And yesterday we saw, once she got in that groove, we've seen it before this season, Ryan, once she gets the tires into the sweet spot and she starts to feel it, she can really carve her way forward.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that car for sure. She has been an incredible performer over the last several race weekends here in GT World Challenge America in that Racer's Edge car. And again, a lot of track time on this track, as you said, as part of the HPD GT3 Academy. Interesting. There it is at the back of the shot, the Turner Motorsport BMW. Great to see them make this race. They had to go through all kinds of effort just to make sure this car was ready to go today.
Yeah, right at the end of the first round of qualifying here yesterday, Michael Dinan had a technical issue and spared the car off the racetrack. Big damage to the chassis and also an oil tank, which was a critical component they did not have here on site. So as Amanda said, they had to send someone up to the workshop in Massachusetts, bring that part back. But they look like they're ready to go again.
Did not race yesterday, just a single hardship lap to make sure the car was back in fighting form, and now they're about to turn it loose for 90 minutes of racing on the most difficult on equipment racetrack you're going to find anywhere in the world. But this Turner Motorsport team, they are up for the challenge. Robbie Foley and Michael Dinan behind the wheel. Jan Heijwen set to lead the field to green at Sebring International Raceway. This is the second of 2 formation laps for this field of cars in the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Lamborghini Urus safety car has those lights off, and for Jan Heijwen, this has been a long time coming. He's been close to the overall pole a couple of times this year, in recent weeks, in fact. Finally gets it done. They'll have Mikhail Grenier of Windward Racing starting alongside. Then the South African Jordan Pepper with the youngster Dakota Dickerson to his flank. That's row number 2. Row 3 sees Matt McMurray and Dennis Lind, the nephew of Jan Magnussen, cousin of Kevin. He gets the start this weekend in the Pro Class entry from TR3 Racing. Jason Harwood, strong qualifying effort from him. He'll start alongside Ryan Diao back in row number 4. Then Corey Lewis in the second of the 2 K-Pax cars. Not a great qualifying day for them. He will have Michael Cooper starting alongside the car he shares with Aaron Vogel. The 6th row has Conrad Grunwald and Drew Stavely set to roll off there. Grunwald shares that car with J.C. Sada. Vesco Kazarov and Onofrio Triarci will start in row 7. Triarci shares the car with Charlie Scardina, his brother-in-law. They were impressive, winning on debut yesterday. Then the Turner Motorsport BMW. Robbie Foley strapped in and ready to go. That could be a car to keep an eye on at the start of this race. Here comes the field headed to turn number 17. That leads on to the pit straightaway and then the green flag. An 8-hour endurance test awaits the cars of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. The season concludes on the road course in Indianapolis, but first an endurance test of its own. 90 minutes around Sebring International Raceway. Here comes the field of GT3 machinery for the final time at the typical race distance here in the 2021 season. Great alignment throughout the field. Tom Hansing waiting for the field to reach the start zone. There is the green flag. We are underway. Great start from Jan Halen. Grenier jumps in line behind. It's side by side for third with Dickerson working to the outside of Jordan Pepper. And here comes Dennis Lind on the move in the white Lamborghini.
Dakota Dickerson in that red and white Acura around the outside, trying to hold on to that fourth position, but Lind has cleared him. And Dickerson's in. Oh, someone gets turned. There's a touch there from Cooper into Matt McMurray. That turns the Acura into the other one of Dakota Dickerson.
That is a tough break for the HPD side of things. Meanwhile, Foley was able to jump up a couple of spots there at the start of that BMW, helped, of course, by the internecine battle amongst those two Acura NSX GT3s. Here at the front, though, sorting itself out a little bit with the front two, but Lamborghini side by side into the hairpin.
Dennis Lind, a little touch there. They touch fenders there as they exit turn 7.
Michael Cooper right behind. He's in the DXDT Racing Mercedes, purple and red, that machine. He runs 5th, but comes into a challenge here. Ryan Dial, you can see the damage on the sister car, but it's not slowing him down at all. He makes the move up the inside.
Side by side here as they exit turn 10, the two teammates. Cooper gives him a little bit of room there, runs up over the curb to clear the way. Madison Snow shadowing the two Mercedes.
That would be in the brightly colored Lamborghini from Zelus Motorsport, and then behind is the other K-Pax car, the green car, Corey Lewis and Giovanni Venturini, the driving duo in that machine.
Robbie Foley there making some moves here in the early going, taking advantage of that little scuffle there, but damage to the right side. There's maybe a tie rub on that BMW M6 as he went into the brake zone for turn 14.
Looks like everyone was able to continue on with the exception of Dakota Dickerson in the Racer's Edge car. Seems to have dropped off the field after the contact in turn 3 on the opening lap. Michael Cooper now coming under threat from Madison Snow. Snow around the outside into Sunset Bend. They're side by side and they make contact. Snow goes around.
He's going to stop just in time. Yes, he does. Shouldn't be any rear damage to that Lamborghini. I think they just brushed each other right into that bumpy brake zone.
Easy to do. Those cars are at their most vulnerable, bouncing over the bumps at high speed. Good news is at the back of the shot, I did see Dickerson coming through, so that car has continued on, but admittedly much delayed. Boy, what a trying opening lap that was for DXDT Racing. You can see the battle scars on Ryan Dial's car, and Michael Cooper was very much in the mix there in this section of the track earlier, plus the contact with Snow.
Yeah, I called it as Cooper. I'm not sure whether it was which one of the two DXDT machines it was who got in on the side of Dakota Dickerson. You see damage to the front end of Dial's machine, and Cooper actually ran over some debris there when he came back through. Let's take another look at it. I think it's actually Dial who's further up there. He gets into the back of Matt McMurray there. I called it as Cooper. It's actually Ryan.
That's a very tight part of the racetrack. Then we've got this contact here in the high-speed turn 17.
Yeah, just a slight graze there between the two cars. And when you're turning and loaded on those bumps, just as you need a bit of bite, suddenly it's going to release those rear tires up over the bumps and send you around.
Looking at the damage on the front of Ryan Dial's car, what effect might that have, assuming it hasn't gotten through to the suspension and it's just the bodywork we're looking at?
Fanatec Motorsports are reporting that they believe that Robbie Foley's car is okay. We definitely saw some tire rub or something going on here. Right there, you can see it.
A little bit of smoke.
So maybe something that's not quite aligned. Big damage to the front of this car in that qualifying session yesterday for Michael Dinan. So maybe at speed and at low, there's just kind of rubbing something there through that corner.
That car has been rebuilt after heavy impact yesterday in qualifying that kept them out of race 1 of the weekend. The team went through great effort to ensure they could race in race number 2, flying in the part they needed to be on the grid.
Corey Lewis there trying to make a charge in the back of the pack. They believe he had a really good lap going yesterday before a slight mistake. So he's on the back foot a little bit, got a lot of work to do.
Update from the stewards. Car 63, that's Ryan Dial, drive-through penalty for incident responsibility. That is the contact that we saw with Matt McMurray right here on the opening lap. Meanwhile, the incident in turn 17, car 88, and presumably Michael Cooper, car 19, under review. That's Madison Snow and Michael Cooper that came together in turn 17 on the first lap.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one was just a racing incident. Two drivers going side by side into a bumpy brake zone. I think the real key call will be on this driver, Ryan Dial, getting in the back of Matt McMurray there. And McMurray was lucky that Dakota Dickerson basically straightened him back up again and let him continue.
Dickerson was not lucky in that regard, but the car must be okay because he just set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. A 2:02.9. No one else in the field is running sub 2:03s.
Yeah, and this is important. They got to get that car back up there to try and keep this Pro-Am Championship alive coming into this race. The number 20 car had a massive lead of 65 points. As we said, a top 5 would do it, but that's dependent on Taylor Hagler winning this race.
Meanwhile, the car that they're comparing themselves to as far as that championship is concerned is not just winning the class, but winning overall as Jan Halen has pulled out nearly a 2-second lead over Mikel Grenier.
Ideally, what Dakota needs here is a couple of laps, maybe make a little bit more hay here and then a reset with a caution, but we haven't seen many this year.
This car is flying, as we said, the fastest lap of the race the last time by, and quickly reeling in the damaged Lamborghini of Vesko Kozarov. A little bit of bodywork loose at the back of that machine, so several cars caught up in the early skirmishes here in less than the first 10 minutes.
Watch for this next lap. He may be slow a little bit here through 17, but Dakota Dickerson, fastest first sector of the day, fastest second sector. He is absolutely flying. Big move here. Corey Lewis down to the inside of Michael Cooper in turn 1.
Just enough respect between the two to keep it clean on corner exit. Cooper trying to fight back to the outside. Lewis able to defend on the inside. Two up-and-coming American GT driving stars, Corey Lewis and Michael Cooper, not in the same class. Corey Lewis, part of a Pro-Pro lineup. Cooper, part of a Pro-Am lineup. So these two very much on even terms as far as their driving talent is concerned.
Dickerson, new fast lap, 2:02.46. Half a second quicker than our leaders as he cuts through this field.
DL, by the way, has served that drive-through penalty. That drops him down to 14th. Madison Snow runs at the tail of the field in 15th after being spun around due to the contact with Michael Cooper. That incident, by the way, still under review. We'll pass along the verdict when we receive it. No drama here at the front. That was exactly why you want to start on pole, Calvin. Jan Halen accelerated away and let everyone behind him deal with the drama.
That's right. Yesterday he got stymied by being behind Dennis Lind in the number 9 TR3 Lamborghini and almost got the Pro-Am victory stolen from him by Dakota Dickerson with that little concertina effect. Certainly made it spectacular for us to watch. It was great racing there for about 20 minutes or so towards the end of yesterday's race.
Yeah, that it was. And between these two Lamborghinis, we saw a good duel on the first lap. They were side by side into the hairpin. Dennis Lind looking right at home in his first appearance in GT World Challenge America. First race was yesterday. Again, had less than a week to prepare himself for the challenge of his very unique racetrack.
TR3 pit box we were looking at in set there with Gregory Romanelli, team owner and manager, alongside Giacomo Altoe.
And they know that they are enjoying being back in the pro class. Currently, though, running in the 4th spot overall, Dennis Lind behind the wheel. Coming up on 10 minutes gone by, let's check in on the progress made by Robbie Foley. Started 15th, he has knifed his way up to 8th. That's the good news, but he's still 5th out of 5 in the pro class, and he's got the feisty Drew Stavely ahead of him. We saw how defensive Drew can get. He kept Ryan Dial at bay for basically the duration of his stint in race 1 yesterday.
It was an awesome battle, just a fight there for the 5th position in class yesterday. And right here, it got really tasty, really sideways in the grass at times to try and maintain that position. The problem for Foley is the car has really not displayed the ultimate pace that you're looking for to be a big factor for a win here this weekend. Looking at his fastest race lap at 2:03.92, second and a half off of Dickerson's time in that Acura.
And that Acura does have some damage as well. Look at the left rear, some bodywork missing. It looked like that diffuser maybe just a little bit loose, possibly stemming from the hard contact. We saw what the contact did in terms of damage to Ryan Dial's car, and you have to expect it's something comparable on the car that he ran into, which is this one right here.
Yeah, that aerodynamic effect is so important, but look at Dakota Dickerson. He is now catching this pack. He's up to 12th position overall, 5th in class. And this is going to be fun to watch. He's up on the wheel, he is pushing hard, the car is working well. Really quick race car, and he's got to try and somehow find a way through this very congested midfield pack.
Battle for the AM class lead going on right in front of him right now. Triarci just took a peek to the outside of Grunwald. It's Ferrari against Ferrari coming through the shot now, and it looks like Grunwald held him off for the moment. That should slow the pair of them down though, and while they scrap it out, Dickerson enters the fray.
Yeah, it's fun to see a real AM battle for the lead here. We haven't seen it much all season long. Limited entry, of course, but obviously a very high level with the AF Corsa team winning the championship. Grunwald's got a real fight on his hands here today.
Oh, big twitch for him there. He's had some great performances though this season, Cal, mixing it up inside the top half of the field. And he's shown on his day he can be as quick as anyone.
He's not going to be intimidated by a little twitch in the race car. He's a drift king, runs cars with 1,400 horsepower at times.
Absolutely. Triarci goes a little bit wide. That lets Dakota Dickerson get up the inside. That's big for him. One last car it needs to get through to start catching the tail of the Pro-Am field. Next target is to get around this AM class car. Conrad Grunwald driving it at the moment. Then to try and catch up to the Compass Racing Acura NSX GT3. Matt McMurray, the next target up the road. The comeback drive continues for Dakota Dickerson. Conrad Grunwald, the AM class leader, in his sights now. Once he dispatches of that AF Corsa Ferrari, then he catches the back of the Pro-Am field, and that's where it gets a bit more difficult.
It does, but he's got such a delta in terms of his pace compared to that pack in front of him, and he should be able to get through them. He just laid down another fast lap, just 1/100th of a second off of his fastest lap of the day, which is still the fastest lap of this race. So he has the pace there. Halen, as the fuel load is burning off, is starting to get a little bit quicker here, stretching that gap at the front over Mikel Grenier.
It's been such a consistent run all season long within the Pro-Am class for Jan Halen and Fred Pordad. Helps to have a team the caliber of Wright Motorsports behind them. And look at Halen starting to turn the wick up himself. CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race that last time by, a 2:01.9. That is rapid.
That really is. Just under a second quicker than these two guys who are giving chase. So that's amazing performance by Jan Halen. The team knows this circuit so well, so much experience here at the Sebring 12 Hour. Jan won that race last year here, finished second earlier this year. A ton of confidence coming in.
Jordan Pepper, Andrea Caldarelli, champions in the making in the pro class. They run in the 3rd spot. Jordan Pepper driving. Here's Dennis Lynn. This is the white Lamborghini we were talking about earlier from TR3 Racing, using all of the road and then some on the exit of the hairpin.
It's his new line, just straight across that relatively low curbing. Be careful you don't cut down the tire. You never know what's going to be out there in that dirt and in that mix.
Even the backside of the curbing sometime can be problematic.
That's the key. If there is a sharp edge to that, you can cut that inside shoulder on these tires. So you do have to be careful. You're not really not going to gain much of that particular sector of the racetrack by making that shortcut.
Halen has built the gap to 3.5 seconds over this battle for second. All 3 of these cars coming through the picture in the pro class, as is this green Lamborghini. Ever since making the pass on Michael Cooper, Corey Lewis has accelerated away. Cooper has settled into a nice rhythm now and has been able to build a gap himself over Drew Stavely. Then it's the recovering Turner Motorsport BMW of Robbie Foley. Still looking to see if we see more of that smoke coming out the back. The problem might have resolved itself. Now, it was an oil pan, is that correct?
Oil tank,
Oil tank?
Yeah. So that's normally situated up high there inside the under the engine bay there. So I think when he ripped off that corner with that impact, Michael Dinan, and now we see the hood is lifting a little bit. So again, when you put all these body pieces back together, it may look set, but suddenly there's a big move there by Dickerson down at the inside. That is for position. That's 4th in the Pro-Am class.
Not wasting any time. Dakota Dickerson scything through the field after being bumped basically to the back of the pack due to contact on the opening lap. No fault of his own. Definitely an innocent bystander in it. but he's put that head down and kept driving forward, almost using that frustration as motivation.
Well, the car is just hooked up, and Dakota's on a mission. He was very impressive yesterday. I'm sure he had his sights set on a high target here today to start this race. He got that bump early on, so as you said, he's going to be frustrated. He's a man on a mission. He's getting this car back into the shape where they can certainly fight at least for a podium run here today, maybe a little bit more.
And again, his co-driver, the full season driver, you see her right there in the picture-in-picture. That's Taylor Hagler. She is second in Pro-Am points. At the moment, there's not much they can do about that, however, because Jan Hayden, Fred Poordad, the leaders in the championship by a hefty margin. They lead in class and overall, but you can't really worry about that right now. Just got to control what you can control. And Dakota Dickerson doing the best to hold up his end of the bargain, coming back from the spin early.
Now trying to make a move on Robbie Foley. Does he dive down there? No, he waits, bides his time a little bit. BMW doesn't seem to be hooked up here. It's a long wheelbase car. Struggles in sort of like fast transitional stuff like we're coming up to next. This kind of series of S's here. The Le Mans curves there, heading onto the Ultimate Straight. So let's see if Dakota Dickerson can carve into that gap a little bit right here.
Definitely closing in. And he stayed close enough to make a move. Keep in mind the strength of this BMW all season long has been the power down, out of the corner, the straight line speed.
Typically not that far behind, though.
True.
So Dakota's hanging right with him, obviously picking up the effect of the draft there in the slipstream. Look at him roll speed here through the apex. Robbie's done a really nice job, though, just settling back in. Didn't see any action here yesterday, didn't qualify yesterday. So last time he sat in this race car was on Friday.
But he does have a lot of GT experience to fall back on. Dickerson, the man on the move, does not. This is just his 6th start in tin tops in his entire career, but you'd never guess it watching him race.
Well, he had the run, but the problem is you have so much rolling speed there through the apex of turn 1. 105 miles an hour minimum speed through turn 1. It is really a challenging corner. Blind to the inside, can't see through the concrete wall, of course.
Little debris on the grille of the BMW, and it is getting quite warm outside here at Sebring. That could present an issue on the cooling side of things. Dickerson again takes a lunge up the inside, but really not close enough to actually make that move stick.
Word from Reardon Racing, they will be retiring their car off fuel system failure, which showed up a little bit in the race yesterday. They've been working hard to fix it, but short day for those boys and girls there. They'll have to try and rebound to Indy.
That's too bad. Vesko Kozarov and Jeff Burton really making progress as the year goes along, but it's an early end to the day for them in race 2 of the weekend here at Sebring.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Fanatec, AWS, and CrowdStrike.
The fight continues in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Dakota Dickerson still plodding away past Robbie Foley in the Turner BMW. That's where his progress has been stymied, but as I say that, Foley drifts just that little bit wide, and that lets Dakota Dickerson slip through to the inside.
Just a power move there. He's got so much confidence in that race car right now that he could roll the speed on the entry. Typically you turn in there and then you're just waiting to start to pick up the power, and Dakota just rolled off the brakes a little bit more easily than Robbie did. And job done, moving forward in a hurry here.
Next target is Drew Stavely in the Ian Lacey Racing Aston Martin, who currently runs 7th overall and 3rd in Pro-Am. So from the spin on the opening lap of this race, Calvin, in just 20 minutes, Dickerson has driven his way back up just off the class podium.
And he's only 20 seconds back of the leader. I'm not saying he's going to catch him, but just that's a super impressive performance. He hasn't been hanging around, cut some really fast laps when he was in clean air there, and has got through this traffic pretty effectively. Obviously, as you mentioned, Ryan, the deeper you go, the harder it's going to become, but he still has a significant speed advantage over the cars in front of him.
Hasn't taken him long to run down Drew Stavely. And That's the battle you're watching on the screen here. At the front, Jan Halen continues to lead. He had seen Grenier and Pepper start to close in, but then uncorked a lap just a tenth or two off of the race's best to extend the lead back up over 4 seconds. So our focus returns here to the best battle on the racetrack, which is Drew Stavely trying to hang on to the final podium spot in Pro-Am. Dakota Dickerson, though, on the charge. He's going to be a hard man to deter.
Certainly a great run for Drew and his teammate Frank Annette here yesterday. Top 5 finish, but both of them had pace. Frank had his elbows out early, just really a strong opening stint. Drew took it over and resisted the challenge from Ryan Dial for many, many laps there towards the end of the race.
Not an easy thing to do, to keep a driver of Ryan's caliber and experience behind, especially given Drew Stavely's inexperience in GT3 machinery. This is his first season racing at the top level of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. What a dominant performance from Jan Halen in what has become basically his home circuit. Born in Belgium, but has lived in Florida for a number of years and has a ton of experience racing here on this airfield circuit in Central Florida in all kinds of different cars. Jan Halen out in front by over 5 seconds, leading Mikael Grenier and Jordan Pepper. Huge lead for Wright Motorsports. Jan Halen and Fred Pordat is co-driver, who will inherit this car when we get to the pit window, which is coming up here in just under 20 minutes or so. So if you're new to Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, 90-minute races, the 10 minutes around the halfway mark, 5 minutes to either side. That is the mandatory pit stop window. You'll see the cars duck in for tires and fuel, full service pit stops, plus the driver change. And that's where the race tends to turn on its head, especially in the Pro-Am category here in race 2, where you see the pros give way to their less experienced amateur co-drivers.
Essentially, it's going to give you about 40 seconds to get that servicing done. You lose about 40 of those 80 seconds just traversing down pit lane at 50 kilometers an hour. There's going to be a lot of strategy involved here in terms of making the right call. Do you do the undercut, try and get those fresh Pirelli P0s straight out of the ovens or the tire blankets on the car, get a fast out lap versus someone else staying out on well-worn tires. And it also protects you a little bit should there be a safety car during that 10-minute window.
Dennis Lind driving the TR3 Lamborghini, dropping off the battle for second a little bit as the stint has gone on, and it's kind of what we saw from them yesterday too. Good pace out of the box, maybe not the long run pace of some of their competitors.
No, and I think K-Pax were very surprised talking to them early yesterday morning. They said, I don't think we've got anything for the TR3 entry, and then they go out and grab both pole positions. So I think the track evolved, it changed a little bit, and it came towards the K-Pax Lamborghinis a little bit more than the TR3 car, but we're seeing here today, Porsche are so strong. Jan Halen, obviously a magician behind the wheel here, but even so, that car is well hooked up, gets the power down well over the bumps here, and he's showcasing that with a 6.2 second lead right now.
Well, we're chronicling excellent comebacks. How about this one? Madison Snow got turned around in turn 17. That incident was reviewed. Never did hear anything about any action being taken. Haven't heard that no action was taken either, for that matter. So for all we know, it might still be under review, but that cost him a great deal of time. But he, much like Dakota Dickerson, has put his head down and caught the tail of the field. That was an Onofrio Triarci in the second place AM class car that he made his way by. That will be the next target for Madison Snow. Conrad Grunwald in the AM class leading Ferrari for AF Corsa.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, Madison's fast lap is almost identical to Dennis Lind, who runs third in the pro class, fourth overall. So you got great pace there. His teammate Jason Harwood had a great run this morning in GT America as well. So a lot of confidence in that group. Looks like they got a really good setup. As we now see that Dakota Dickerson has finally gotten around Drew Stavely for that track position and third in the Pro-Am class.
Drew fought the good fight, but that seemed almost inevitable. I'm not so sure that there's a faster car on the racetrack than this one. I think this might be the class of the field, especially with Dakota behind the wheel, although Taylor has shown great pace throughout the weekend as well. One thing I want to call attention to real quick, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen Robbie Foley's name down towards the bottom, but it seems like he's having some kind of a transponder issue because on our timing and scoring, he's been popping up and down also. And it does seem like for fans of the Turner team, you don't need to panic about that at least. He is still running in the 9th position overall, 5th in pro, but you might see him bouncing around on the timing and scoring throughout the course of the race with a minor glitch that they're working through. Well, Dakota Dickerson has been the star of the show so far, and his co-driver, Taylor Hagler, is standing by with Amanda.
And as we've been watching along during this race, Taylor was surrounded by her team watching Dakota mount that comeback here from an unfortunate spin earlier in the race. What if Dakota impresses you on this drive?
Oh, kind of everything, honestly. I mean, he's just a really, really good teammate. He's an amazing driver. He has a world of experience. He's been driving for such a long time, and he's driven so many different things from open wheels to prototypes to GT cars, and everything that he does is very quick and very precise. And I mean, I had a very bad start yesterday and dropped to the back, so I know what it's like to be like on that chase, and that's where he is right now. So I kind of know what's going through his head, and I know he's going to go for Halen. It's just a matter of if we can get there or not, but he's just going to keep it safe and do what he can.
What is going through his head?
Trying to keep it safe and do what he can. I mean, he's probably seeing a bit of red. He really, our goal was to get and stay with Halen so that we had a really, really good fight for the win whenever I got in. So he's probably seeing a bit of red right now and just doing everything that he can. He's probably really, really hot and honestly just focused on every corner, and right now going for Michael Cooper.
Well, it'll be your chance as you'll look to chase down Fred Cordat.
Thank you.
Seeing clear track in front of him now, that was an incisive move, finding a way past Michael Cooper in a place you don't usually see a move like that.
Yeah, and I think Michael Cooper knew it was inevitable, so he didn't really put up a big fight there like normal. So he settles in there. He recognized that Racer's Edge car has a ton of pace. And it looked like Dixon had stalled out a little bit when he was behind stably there for a couple of laps. Couldn't really do anything with it, and then, boy, it's like he found another gear suddenly.
Taylor reminded me in that interview that indeed she did slip back some at the start yesterday, and they had a big recovery. She was a huge part of it in her stint, getting forward once again, but then when Dakota Dickerson got strapped in, the progress just continued. And it's not really the way that you'd like to go about your racing. You'd rather not have to overcome a deficit, but clearly this is a team that's capable of doing so. There's a replay of the move. What do you make of this?
Let's take a look at this. Not sure this is where the initial move came. This was right before he finally made the pass. I think the pass was in turn 9 ultimately.
Now, really good stuff between these two, fighting over the final podium position, 2nd and 3rd in Pro-Am. Give it to Dakota Dickerson. So Dickerson now running 2nd in the Pro-Am class after that pass on Michael Cooper. Now he sets off in hot pursuit of Corey Lewis, who runs 5th overall and 4th in pro. Pro-Am leader is the overall leader. That's this car, Jan Halen, out in front, as he has been since the drop of the green. Started on pole, got a great start, and has not looked back since.
He has not. Now extended the gap over Michael Grenier to 7.5 seconds, and the gap to Dickerson is blown out a little bit. So Dickerson held it around 20 seconds, it's now up to 23 and a bit, but Dickerson's obviously had to fight through traffic, so now we'll have to wait and see how that gap evolves here before we get to the round of pit stops.
Been a really solid stint here for Michael Grenier, Canadian driver who has done most of his racing in recent years overseas in Europe. Mercedes AMG GT3s, both the previous version and the Evo that he's racing in here. And we saw he was plug and play with this team going back to the first time we saw him in this car back at VIR back in June.
They had a victory that weekend.
Yes.
Could have been 2. They had a little snafu on one of the pit stops, as I recall. So very impressive young man, very quiet and unassuming. See Cheyenne up there is girlfriend of Madison Snow, running for the Zalus team.
Jason Harwood alongside. He'll be driving that car next. See Shay, pit lane reporter extraordinaire, here in the paddock.
Fun to see how they do at Indy, because it really seems like they've found the sweet spot to this car here, and Madison, with his experience, is having to take kind of more of the technical load in terms of the direction of the setup of the race car. He's got so much experience with this platform now, with a different team running in a different championship here in North America. But I think he's enjoying that challenge.
Definitely so. They are one of the teams, by the way, that is not planning on running the entire 8 hours of the Indy 8 hours. Remember, the final points of the championship will be paid out in the first 3 hours of that race. And after that, then the focus turns to the race itself. It's also the second round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. But because of the increased distance, 3 hours rather than 90 minutes, 50 points are on offer for the leaders at the end of 3 hours, which is the equivalent of 2 race wins, so effectively double points there at Indianapolis. Should be a fantastic grid for that race. Can't wait to get there in a couple of weeks as the focus of Global GT Racing heads to the World Center of Racing. Less than an hour to go at Sebring. Jan Heylen leading the way as he has from the drop of the green flag. 8.5 seconds the advantage over Mikael Grenier. Jordan Pepper running second in the Pro-Am class, but third overall. Rest of the overall top 5, Dennis Lind and Corey Lewis.
Certainly Pepper is keeping Grenier honest, but he's really not posed a serious threat at this stage. Kind of sits there about 3/4 of a second to a second back, so maybe he's getting a little bit of an ill effect from that aero wash that you get from these GT3 machines. Lind sits a couple of seconds back there. Lewis has dropped back about 8 seconds from the 9 to the 6, and Dakota Dickerson on the move. He's still inching up on Corey Lewis. It will not be for a position in class, but just overall. So he's running lap times about 6 to 7 tenths faster at this stage of the race.
Dennis Lind, great to have him in the championship. Great to have him on speed dial for TR3 to get an experienced Lamborghini driver over to the States on short notice when they decided they wanted to go for the pro class here this weekend. And again, Dennis racing an identical chassis to this one in British GT, where he leads the points for Harwood. Great Lamborghini outfit over in the UK. Leo Machitsky, his teammate there.
Just to know the feel and the thinking of that TR3 group, I'm sure they came into this weekend knowing it was going to be a big challenge to try and threaten the dominance of the K-Pax Racing Squad with a similar chassis. But then after Thursday and Friday practice session, I'm sure they went to bed Friday night thinking, we're going to be a real threat for a podium, a pole, and maybe a win here this weekend. And it hasn't quite developed into that sort of threat.
No.
Nonetheless, still pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, they're still running in podium contention as far as the pro class is concerned, but I think they're expected to be at the pointy end based on the practice results. It's an experienced team, it's worth noting, but this is their first year running Lamborghinis. They've been a Ferrari operation for so many years, whether in Ferrari Challenge or in Pirelli World Challenge, now SRO America competition. And there is some adjustment that goes with that. I thought they showed quite well in recent races, especially when they went to the pairing with Giacomo Altole, who we'll see in a moment, paired up with an AM the caliber of Martin Fuentes. And they've challenged for class podiums and stood on class podiums in the last couple of rounds at Road American Watkins Glen, which is why it surprised me they decided to go to the pro class here for this weekend. Race Vision powered by AWS, overall top speeds. Tell you what, this is cut and paste all season long, that BMW at the top of the charts. But you brought up a good point earlier. The Acura is not far behind, just over a mile per hour.
Yeah, they're very competitive, and they're certainly carving the corners a little bit more effectively than the BMW M6 this weekend. But Foley's just digging deep here, grinding away. They're on the back foot, lost a lot of valuable track time, lost any track knowledge from yesterday in terms of how the car's balance would evolve through the course of 90 minutes. So should be a big advantage for their competitors.
Where do these cars hit that top speed around Sebring?
Well, mainly down the Ullman straightaway, but there's a couple of other areas down the front stretch, and also up through Bishop Bend. It's really fast through there as you head towards turn 15.
A shortage of high-speed, high-commitment corners at Sebring. As you can see, not much in the way of runoff. There is Armco or a tire barrier waiting for you, plus you have the bumps to contend with. But that no margin of error aspect of the track that makes it so appealing. It's a real test of driving talent.
It is, and certainly for the engineers, it's a real head scratcher in terms of how to keep that tire on the pavement. Suspension and shock work is so critical here. Obviously, it's horses for courses. Some cars are a bit more compliant in terms of their makeup of the suspension.
Madison Snow continuing to impress in the SRO Motorsports car, recovering from the spin after light contact there on the opening lap. And that brightly colored car with the bullcorn on the side. The bull with the nose ring, but the unicorn horn. Not sure where they came up with that idea, but it sure is captivating, as is the paint scheme.
There have been some drinks involved.
This car here, the beautiful livery, Compass Racing. Not been their day here today. Matt McMurray, no fault of his own again. There was contact on the first lap. It could have been worse. You pointed it out. He kind of used Dakota Dickerson to arrest his slide. But maybe something not quite right with the alignment or the damage to the back that you can see there. That car just hasn't raced as well as I anticipated, and I wonder if it has something to do with the contact.
Certainly it's going to be compromised, but lucky that both of those Acuras didn't take an early bath, because that was a pretty severe incident there down in the brake zone for turn 3.
Should keep in mind that Dakota Dickerson's drive back through the field has not stalled out. He is actually slowly but surely catching Corey Lewis, and actually not so slowly, just surely on the last lap. He should be there very, very soon as we keep an eye on the AM class contenders closing in on the pit window at Sebring.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Pirelli, Rebellion, and Total.
Nice battle shaping up here. Drew Stavely continues to be awfully strong playing defense, as he was all day yesterday as well. Keeping Robbie Foley at bay. Behind him, Matt McMurray, then Madison Snow. These 4 cars have been running in this alignment for some time, but while they've been doing that, Dakota Dickerson slowly but surely, as I said, reeling in Corey Lewis, and he's got that gap down under a second now, just 0.6 of a second between those two. And we're only a couple minutes away from the pit window opening. Don't expect to see the pros dip in very soon in the Pro-Am lineups. It should give us time to see a fight develop there between Lewis and Dickerson, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think significantly for Dickerson, he's actually closed in a couple of seconds on the Pro-Am leader. Jan Halen, who leads this race overall, is up around 23.9 when I looked a few laps ago. Now it's down to 21.8. So that could help out Taylor Hagler, but Fred Portat, as we know, Jan Halen's teammate, is certainly up to the task of assuming the lead of one of these races and being comfortable doing it. But those seconds are certainly precious here to try and close that gap.
Here we go, the battle is on. Lamborghini versus Acura. Dakota Dickerson right behind Corey Lewis, who has a similar story in some respects, also trying to cut a path on the open wheel ladder before turning to sports car racing. Native of Nazareth, Pennsylvania, got some help from the Andretti family, which of course resides there in Nazareth, but has found a niche for himself within the Lamborghini operation. He's not a factory driver, but he might as well be. And kind of plug him in wherever they see it. He's been instrumental in this K-Pax racing team's success, bringing some track knowledge on the American circuits that most of his co-drivers lack.
Yeah, I think his loyalty to the brand has certainly been rewarded by Chris Ward, the North American Lamborghini racing program manager. And he was always looking for an opportunity like this as it evolved in K-Pax, making the switch to the Lamborghini brand in the off-season from Bentley, coming back to racing on North American soil. And he's been a great fit. Unfortunately, this car has had a little bit of an issue all summer long. They haven't been able to find the ultimate pace of the teammate car. Keep digging hard.
That's exactly what he'll do, as will Dakota Dickerson, who gives chase down the front stretch. The battle has been joined between Corey Lewis and Dakota Dickerson. This is for 5th overall, a Pro Class car leading a Pro-Am car. What's crucial here for Dickerson, though, is not to lose too much time relative to Jan Halen. That's his class leader, the overall leader as well, to stay close enough that Taylor Hagler has a chance to run down Fred Pourdad during the second stint of the race, which should be coming up relatively soon because the pit window opens in 10 seconds.
Expect Dakota Dickerson to stay out there a little bit longer for Corey Lewis and Venturini. They've typically done an early change here, so we'll see what the K-Pax team elects to do. It's not always necessarily the leader gets that first opportunity to pit, but anyone can pit right now. So do they play it safe with Pepper, bring him in? I'm not worried about a championship picture any longer with that title already sealed here yesterday with their win. But they certainly want to try and get the best outcome of this race as well. Anytime they're racing, they're out for the win.
The last championship yet to be decided is the Pro-Am battle, but that could very well be wrapped up. It would be. With the points as they run, Jan Halen leading, doing more than enough for Wright Motorsports. If Jan and Fred Pourdad finish 5th, it does not matter what Taylor Hagler does. They will clinch.
Big compression of the cars at the back there, led by Robbie Foley. Sits 5th in the Pro class, then it's the 5th position car, Matt Murray in Pro-Am. Madison Snow on the rebound from that moment where he got tipped around in turn 17.
Might not be the outing they were hoping for, but you have to commend the effort from Turner Motorsport to get this car repaired out on the track. Chances are it's probably compromised to some degree due to the heavy crash yesterday, but the fighting spirit is on display. Corey Lewis, an early caller to the pit lane. Dennis Lind as well just ahead. So TR3 and K-Pax, the first callers to the pit early in the pit window.
Real key here is should there be a safety car that can really affect the leaders. So a little bit of a strategy call. Certainly Giacomo Altoe has been very impressive here this weekend. It's going to be Venturini jumping on board this number 6 machine for K-Pax Racing.
Giacomo Altoe for TR3 just grinned when I asked him what he thought of this racetrack yesterday. He's a big fan on his first Jupiter GT3 car. Here's the driver change going on for K-Pax. See the drivers helping one another get buckled in. That is a real process in one of these cars. TR3 is done. You saw them sitting stationary momentarily. That probably is good news. They cannot be done with their service and leave the pit lane in under 80 seconds. So if they're sitting still, that means they got the service done in plenty of time, and now it's just about timing the exit. Similar story from K-Pax. As we've come to expect, they are as good as they get in the pit lane. Here comes Madison Snow looking awfully racy, putting the pressure on Matt McMurray.
Dennis Lind to Altoe, 80.8, 80.1 for the K-Pax team of Lewis to Venturini. Two really solid stops there, no issues.
Right there in the window you want to be in. Snow really closed in a few moments ago. Now we get to a part of the track that maybe the advantage starts to swing back the way of the NSX.
And also you can have that run going. You got a little bit more pace. Oh, a little bobble there as he really tried to fire it in there to close up on the back of McMurray through turn 16. But I think you need a big delta. You need about a second a lap like we saw with Dakota Dickerson to really carve through this field. Otherwise you're just going to stall out a little bit.
I'll say this. Corey Lewis pitting when he did early in the window is a boon for Dakota Dickerson because that gives him clear track. He can just go out there and run fast lap after fast lap instead of being held up a little bit by Lewis, who was not quite on the same pace in the opening part of that stint. And there was a scenario in which, had Lewis stayed out, that could have been holding Dickerson up for several laps. Instead, he's turned free and basically now can go on the attack until his pit window closes and he's forced to pit lane. K-Pax Racing making their second stop now for the sister car. Jordan Pepper taking, and Andrea Caldarelli switching spots in that machine.
Solid run for Pepper. Just doesn't see that ultimate pace of the Porsche up front. But again, as a pro being replaced by a pro, again, Halen's going to be Fred Pourdad. Look for their Pro-Am title clincher here today, but he's not going to have the pace of Caldarelli. It's going to be all about whether that pro car can hound and chase down the number 20 Porsche for the overall win.
No drama here as joins the racetrack following the pit stop. Giacomo Altoe already on a flyer, but not close enough to really threaten. Plus, you can use tire warmers in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, so it shouldn't take quite as long for Caldarelli to be back up on the pace. That should be more than enough to, at least in the short term, keep Altoe at bay.
Caldarelli has been so impressive this year. We knew his history, so much success coming to the Rolex Daytona 24-hour race for many years with success there. Just one of the fastest Lamborghini factory pilots globally.
Andrea really credits his father, Vitaliano, who was a sports car, touring car driver in Italy himself, for teaching him what it's all about, the business of the sport, how to act like a professional. There are a lot of race car drivers who are fast, but it's more than just being fast to be successful at a very high level. And he had a great mentor in his father to look up to in his early years.
He's certainly doing that with the management of the team over there in Europe, so trying to cover every facet of the business. How long your career is going to last behind the wheel. I'm sure he's got many years or decades ahead of him in terms of pedaling one of these Lamborghini Huracans. We now see Madison Snow in. Jason Harwood jumping back behind the wheel for the second time today, having competed earlier this morning with a nice podium run in GT America.
He did. He was challenging for the race win late in that race, pressuring the likes of Memo Gidley, which goes a long way to illustrating how far he has come in his first season of pro racing. And he jumped into the deep end, didn't he, Calvin? First season in pro racing, and he does it in a GT3 car.
Yeah, that's a big step.
All right, let's keep an eye on this. This is Windward Racing leaving the pit lane. This is going to be close with K-Pax. Grenier giving it up to Ward. They use their joker, so that probably helped them leapfrog in front. But Caldarelli's already up to speed. Ward just now leaving the pits. Mercedes versus Lamborghini.
Mercedes was ahead of the Lamborghinis. They came in, so it's a little bit tighter coming out, as you would expect. Here we go. Pressure's on Russell Ward. Those tires will not be in their sweet spot just yet. Will Caldarelli send it here into the brake zone?
Ward looking defensive. Here comes Caldarelli up the inside, late on the brakes, and he leaves Ward with no recourse. Big time move from Andrea Caldarelli.
Yeah, moving forward in a hurry. So now the key is going to be Jan Halen. He'll be on his in lap. May get one more. To wait and see. He's down in turn 3, Christensen corner now, so what have we got? He's going to have to come in this lap.
When you watch Caldarelli race, you kind of wonder how he slipped through the single-seater cracks. It looked like he was poised for Formula One if you go back to the first decade of this millennium. He actually conducted a test with the Toyota Formula One team, but it had to be done in utter secrecy because he was only 17 years old at the time. I never quite got that call up. Got a chance to extend his racing career by going to Japan, racing in a couple of different formulas there, and got hooked up with Lamborghini, and it's been a great fit. 31 years old and a lot of future still in front of him. Similar story here for both of these two drivers. Dakota Dickerson, what a storming drive he had. Gives it over to Taylor Hagler. Looks like the driver exchange was a clean one. Now just waiting on the tires. A little bit of a hang-up on the right rear, but they still have the car wet. So hopefully that's a good sign.
Could have been a slight delay. John Maraki watching on. We talk about great fits. It's been a great fit since that team have moved up to GT3 competition with this Acura NSX. Ton of success. A couple of titles over the last 2 years and lots of wins this year as well.
Let's look at what the clock tells us. 80 seconds is what we're looking for, and yep, just a shade over.
That was tight.
Yeah.
It wasn't much delay. It was just really get some life into that engine and go.
Whoa, that was close.
And
How about
Torini
that?
There, trying to fix this hood in the Turner pit stop.
Let's go to Amanda for more.
That's exactly what they wanted to take a look at when they came into this pit stop. Michael Dinan is back in that car for the first time since this incident in qualifying. Before that, he was fist bumping everybody. You got to give the nod off to this team for getting back on the track. The team is here right now clapping on that pit stop. Also going to look at transponder issues they were having during that pit stop as well.
Nice work by the Turner boys just to be on the track. We'll see what Michael Dinan can do. It's been a great year of hit for him in his first season of GT3 racing. Into the final minute now of the pit window, and as expected, Jan Halen stays in as long as he can. Jason Harwood with it off. That will delay them.
It's that tricky turn 5. Too easy to just roll too much speed through there and just have the rear end give up on you. And with that transponder issue, we're not getting the pit stop time for the Turner Motorsports BMWs. Take another look at what happened to Harwood. Just fires it in there, just a bit too much weight on the nose as he turned in. Sometimes you just try and accelerate into that corner and you're braking a little bit harder. Right as you're turning, you lose the rear. Oh, big one.
That's the Triarsi Competizione car. Pit window is closed and full course yellow. Full course yellow will bunch up the field, but a heavy impact there for the race 1 winner in the AM class going back to yesterday.
They should have made their pit stop, so I don't think Triarsi was in the
No, that
car.
should be Charlie Scardina,
Yeah.
who was really impressive in qualifying for race 1. Stuck that car right in the middle of the grid in that qualifying effort in his first competitive racing appearance since 2007. But something went awry with just under 40 minutes remaining, and it brings out the first full course yellow of the race.
Well, this is going to set the cat amongst the pigeons here in terms of how this one shakes out. That massive lead that Fred Fordad had to play with is suddenly gone away.
Really excited to see this. Charlie Scardina able to walk away to the medical car under his own power. Big hit, but these race cars these days are as safe as they come, and Charlie Scardina walks away. Full course yellow with under 40 minutes left to go in race 2 of the weekend at Sebring. That is a relief, Calvin. Anytime you see a car that torn up, you know the impact must have been a big one, and Charlie Scardina walks away.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was on relatively cold tires there. I think it was his first lap out, or could have been his out lap, actually. So just gets it a little bit wrong. Lots of bumps there through turn 1. So if you're accelerating away from your pit stop, or whether you're coming through turn 1 for the very first time, easy to get it wrong. Unfortunate end to what's been a wonderful debut weekend for that team in GT World Challenge America competition.
And I hope it doesn't put too much of a damper on the experience, because in speaking to them prior to the start of the weekend, we're really excited to be here sampling pro racing at this level, a team that has extensive experience in Ferrari Challenge, but still new to the GT3 game, at least at this level. And they are evaluating a program that could see as many as 2 cars on the grid in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, as soon as next year. Certainly yesterday was a great introduction to it, but it goes to show how quickly things can change in this game.
They're the fine margins, and Sebring is very challenging, and respect the bumps is what it's all about. And you know, that's where, you know, being out of the cockpit for a little bit of time, maybe it just caught him out. Charlie did such a nice job in qualifying yesterday. Really impressive performance there. Nice solid run in the race, but we'll have to wait and see. And here we see the Turner Motorsports car having issues after their pit stop. So I'm not sure if Michael's trying to do a reset here at low speed.
Something
I
clearly
hear it
amiss.
like trying to get back life into that machine. So I heard it from the trackside camera. Not the weekend they were looking for, trying to keep the pressure on. Big battle for second in the points, which is still tight, but it looks like they may lose more ground to the 6 machine from K-Pax.
And the tough thing here is making sure they can make it to at least 70% race distance. If you reach that threshold, then at least you can score points. And 5th place points are a heck of a lot better than no points at all. But it does look like Dinan has that car refired and continues on. Problems under the safety car for Turner Motorsport. Michael Dinan slowed, but appears to have that car refired. And we'll try to catch up to the field. Here is a replay. This might explain a number of things here, Calvin.
Here's Charlie Scardina. That's his first lap after his pit stop. Just lose it on relatively cold tires through the bumps there. Heavy impact to the left-hand side. I don't think that's anything to do with the turner delay. Obviously, they were in the picture there. So we see Michael Dinan still struggling to get that car up to full speed.
Well, on that accident, you saw the tire wall do exactly what it's there to do, and that's dissipate a lot of the energy of the crash. It looks dramatic sometimes, but that's exactly what you're aiming for. And it's amazing all these years later, all the advances in safety, and still the tire wall is one of the best options you can find. And I say that sincerely. It's not, there's just not much better in a lot of instances.
No, it just absorbs that energy. See the fix going on with the turn 1 exit wall there. Able to hook those tires pretty quickly.
The car already up on the flat toe. It has clearly seen better days. Had this happened yesterday, they do have that second car on site. Mentioned earlier they were evaluating 2 cars for next season. Both of them were sitting, gleaming under the tent. Fortunately, a lot of work yet to be done to get one of those ready to go for any future running. Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. It is one leg of the global Fanatec GT World Challenge Championship for GT3 manufacturers. They score points across 3 different series globally, and in all of the classes of those series. So, of course, here in North America, but also the Australian series, as well as Europe. We certainly hope to have the Asian series back up and running as well to make it 4. But these are the manufacturers signed up to score points towards this championship. And after yesterday's race, Mercedes-AMG with a nice lead over Lamborghini. Ferrari's had some stout performances as well. They sit in 3rd in the points. Still several races yet to be run across the 3 global Fanatec GT World Challenge Championships, all of which powered by AWS. So let's take a look at the running order here. Now that we've established what happened to bring out the yellow, and we know that Charlie Scardina is relatively all right walking away from that accident, this brings the field all back together again. Calvin, who does this help?
Well, it helps out Taylor Hagler. She sits there in the 6th position in line, but 2nd in the Pro-Am class. So you'd have to feel that certainly Caldarelli and company will probably eventually make their way around Fred Portad, and then that should clear the way for Hagler to try and go to work and see if she can close in on that Pro-Am class win and just somehow try and keep their championship chances alive. I think for Altoe, this is good. It's going to keep him right on the tail of Russell Ward as we get back to green flag running.
The problems continue for Turner Motorsport. Amanda, what have you heard?
Yeah, you see Michael Dinan there exiting the racetrack. They're going to take it back to the paddock. There's a throttle issue. Michael Dinan has no throttle. I asked Will Turner if they had any idea of where this might come from, and he was like, nope, of all the problems we've seen this weekend, this isn't one of them, he said through a smile. But it is crucial for the team. They really want to get back on this track, hoping to hit that 70% mark in order to make points here in race number 2.
Well, the fact that we continue under yellow helps in that regard. It slows the pace, of course, and means fewer laps will be turned. Right now, Dinan is 2 laps down to the leader. Still 30 minutes to go, though, so I suspect they need to get back out, turn a few more.
Yes, well, we're at 65% of the time of the race, but the 70% is how many laps the overall leader does as the distance, so it doesn't quite jive when I've had some caution.
Exactly, and the tire barriers continue to be tended to by this fantastic staff here at Sebring. And we'll restart racing as soon as possible once the tire barrier is intact once again. Let's give a call to Aaron Vogel, who runs in 7th overall, but 3rd in Pro-Am. Very much in podium contention once again. She and Michael Cooper. Michael had an interesting opening stint right there in the midst of some of the biggest carnage on that opening lap.
Don't count out Salas, though. He had a really strong run here this morning, and GT America has shown great pace here this weekend. So Compass Racing and that number 77 Acura NSX, they'll be looking for a little bit more than the 4th position they're running in right now.
Yeah, that's right. Great to have Rodrigo back. He has such a busy racing schedule. He had a couple of championships globally that prevented him from running the full schedule here this year. I believe this will be the last time we see Rodrigo this season. I think it's a different lineup that you can expect to see, at least as far as he's concerned, for the Indianapolis 8-hour.
He's looked really racy, though, this weekend, not just in terms of his pace, but just you can tell from his demeanor he's ready to go. He's up on the wheel.
Well, we saw that in the GT America race this morning, where he qualified on the outside of the front row and was so anxious he actually led the field to the green flag, which led to a wave off.
Right.
So yes, I think it's safe to say he's chomping at the bit. The good driver just didn't have much luck at the start of the season when he was doing most of his racing over here stateside, but that team has hit its stride. And you're right, they very well could be in for a podium run.
Key right now for these drivers to really prepare these tires for this restart. Don't want to get any pickups, so you need to weave around a little bit. Also, what they'll start to do is to drag their left foot on the brake as they're accelerating at the same time, trying to build up a little bit of temperature. You can get a lot of brake temperature, comes up through the upright, up through the wheel, and ultimately in the core of the tire. It's not going to affect the temperature of the surface, but certainly the inside of the tire can be affected and give you a bit more grip when you go back to green.
And now is the time to do it, because the lights are off on the safety car, and in fact it has accelerated away with less than 30 minutes remaining in race 2 of the weekend at Sebring. We're about to go green once again. Fred Pourdad, thanks to the fantastic opening stint from Jan Halen, he leads overall in that Pro-Am entry from Wright Motorsports. Then it's Lamborghini factory ace Andrea Caldarelli, Russell Ward for Winwood Racing, Giacomo Altoe for TR3, and Giovanni Venturini for K-Pax runs in 5th. The green flag flies. Caldarelli quickly on the attack. He's going to go for the overall lead right now.
Look down to the inside, and look at that. Pourdad just lets them go. Russell Ward goes with Caldarelli there. Giacomo Altoe clears him. Taylor Hagler very much on the attack. She can see that Pro-Am class leader right in front of her now.
For Fred Pourdad, this is a loss of track position, but not class position. That changes, though, in just 2 cars. He has the pro car of Venturini now in lockstep behind him, but right behind, that's where Taylor Hagler is lurking. 2nd place in Pro-Am, and Erin Vogel's got a nice head of steam built up. She runs 3rd in the class. Here comes Hagler around the outside of Pourdad. She takes the lead.
Deep into the brake zone, just clears the Porsche, gives him plenty of room there. Didn't want to cut across too severely there and make any contact. Vogel's right there as well. Also Salas, 1, 2, 3, 4.
All the Pro-Am contenders in the same shot. Erin Vogel to the outside of Fred Pourdad, but he's racing with a championship in mind. Salas throws it up the inside. He's through as well. That drops Pourdad back to 4th, but that's still enough. If they finish in this order, even with Hagler leading, it would not be enough to prevent Pourdad and Halen from clinching the Pro-Am title.
A lot of pressure on Fred Pourdad there at that restart, but he's dropped a lot more position than I think the team were expecting. Most importantly, he's lost the class lead and dropped off the podium spots right now. If he loses 2 more positions, that could keep the championship open heading to Indy, and anything can happen there. And have a ton of cars seeing that initial start, and you got to get to 70% of a 3-hour mark. That's a big ask.
It is. How impressive was that from Taylor Hagler? She knew exactly what she needed to do. When the opportunity arose, she pounced. Great stuff there from the Racer's Edge driver. She moves to the lead of Pro-Am. The lead overall is this car. Andrea Caldarelli out in front.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Acura, Ferrari, and Lamborghini.
Kind of got the sense it was going to be a frantic start on the restart there, with a Pro-Am car leading a couple of hungry pros, and then Taylor Hagler driving with reckless abandon just because there's nothing to lose. She needs to win, basically, to stay in the mix. And that's exactly what she's done, making big-time moves to get up to the lead.
So she leads. Erin Vogel in second, Salas up to third. Fred Portad now feeling the pressure from behind. Harwood is coming after him. And then you got David Askew a few seconds back from them. So if Askew can get in the mix as well, could this championship go all the way to Indy for the Pro-Am division?
Well, that's what it's going to come down to. Right now, the Racers Edge team, I'm not sure they've ever cheered so hard for DXDT Racing, but they need one of these two cars. Doesn't have to be Askew. It could be Frank Gannett, but one way or the other, one of these two needs to get up around Fred Portad for them to stay in the hunt. Because as it stands, even if Portad were to drop that position to Harwood, he would still be in position to clinch.
Settling in here. Still feel that Salas may have a say in this victory here today. Sitting in the third position. Vogel's doing a really nice job here by latching on at the tail end of Hagler here, who has the lead, of course, in the Pro-Am class. Venturini stretching the gap here with the 4 Pro cars now running 1 through 4.
A couple of podiums this season for Erin Vogel and Michael Cooper. Had a 3rd place result in race 1 at Watkins Glen a few weeks ago.
Had a win as well, right?
Yes.
Pro-Am win this year.
VIR race 1. Those are the 2 podium results.
Look at Harwood getting ever closer to Fred Portad, but it will still be enough. Fred can afford to lose 1 more position and still have enough to clinch the championship.
I expect he knows that. That Wright Motorsports team, they are experienced. They've been in championship hunts before. They know the information you need to pass along to your driver to make sure they are aware of the situation. What a run it's been for this team all season long. They've only finished off the podium 1 time in the Pro-Am class, and that has given them a lead that is bordering on insurmountable, but it's not done yet. Still 23 minutes left at Sebring. Fred Portad falling off the top 3 in the Pro-Am class just a bit. That brings Jason Harwood into the mix, but the good news for Wright Motorsports, Calvin, is David Askew and Frank Gannett, who run 6th and 7th in Pro-Am, do not appear to have the pace of this Porsche, at least at this stage, which would have them safely in championship clinching position.
Yeah, so right now they just need that car to stay healthy for the last 22 minutes plus of this race, and that will be enough. Probably not the way they wanted to potentially clinch the championship here today, but now Fred's got some clean air. I wonder if he just got too much pickup on his tires and was just struggling for grip there on that opening lap or two, because now he seems to have got back into a groove here and is maintaining pace with this leading 3.
Well, Dakota Dickerson might have been the star of the opening stint of this race. It's his co-driver Taylor Hagler driving now, but Amanda has caught up with Dakota.
And Dakota alongside here watching his teammate on track right now. And Dakota, the chances that you guys can push this to Indy just got really good with Taylor taking over the lead. Fred is battling in position with Jason Harwood right now. What would it mean to you guys to make it go 1 more event here in this championship?
Yeah, so it's been a great race so far. Unfortunately, a bit of contact at the start pushed us back. Tried to fight our way back up, but the Racers Edge Motorsports Acura SX GT3 Evo has been on rails. Taylor's doing a fantastic job as always, getting us to the lead, and like you said, keeping the championship hunt alive. So if we can keep this going to extend the championship to Indy, you never know what's going to happen. Looks like there's a lot of GT3 cars coming into the Pro-Am class for that race.
When you get spun out that early in your drive, how do you maintain your composure?
Honestly, the Racers Edge Motorsports guy and Ryan Eversley out on track is keeping me nice, cool, calm, and collected. But honestly, just trying to utilize everything we learned in the GT3 Academy. It's really cool to get those foundations laid out, fighting for podiums and now fighting for wins. So can't thank everybody enough at Honda Racing HPD for giving us this opportunity.
This team, with the way the weekend has gone, they've had to bounce back in both races. They got to feel a bit like Sisyphus in his boulder, right? They get to the top of the hill with great qualifying results. Boulder rolls back down the hill. They roll it back up as they recover, and still, despite the fact they're out in front, not much they can do about Fred Portad with the position that he runs in now.
I think in both cases you need great traction, and they certainly have there here at Sebring. The car is really hooked up. You could see it in the performance of Dakota Dickerson. Taylor looks pretty comfortable right now. She went on the march yesterday. When that car gets in its sweet spot, she can really fly, and it seems right now she's stretching that gap on Erin Vogel as she turns her attention to Rodrigo Salas, who is right behind her right now for that second position.
Yeah, Rodrigo, you called it, is the man on the move, looking very aggressive. And don't sleep on this fight. Let's shape it up here. Russell Ward doing a really good job. Definitely doesn't have the experience of Giacomo Altoe, but he has turned into an exceedingly good GT3 driver over the last season and a half. We've talked about it a few times over the course of the year, but when we caught up with him early in the season, we asked, how do you feel about being a pro in an all-pro lineup? He's typically been in Pro-Am lineups as the lesser experienced of the two, and he said, look, that's how I view myself, that's how I want to be viewed. And he's putting the skills on display. That was a big moment at the exit of one.
Yeah, a little twitchy there as looking at Dennis Lind there, watching the progress of his teammate, Altoe, behind the wheel of the number 9 machine. I think you're spot on there. I mean, it was a big ask for Michael Dinan and Russell Ward to step up to that pro level. But they felt, you know what, they're kind of in that in-between land. They're not really AMs any longer, but are they at the pro level? So I think it's a good test for both of those young drivers, and I think they've really stepped up nicely this year.
It almost seems like it's accelerated their respective learning curves as well, because they have to measure themselves against some of the best GT racers anyway.
It can be frustrating when you're comparing yourself against some of the best GT pilots on the global stage, but nonetheless, that's how you get better. You know, the standard is high. You have to dig deep, try and find it. You're running alongside a really great teammate, so you got the data to work with. Both have great teams that they're working in conjunction with as well, so that certainly helps.
Saw a shot at Dennis Lind. He started this TR3 Lamborghini that Giacomo Altoe is driving, flashing those headlights. Boy, he is close. For a moment there, you couldn't even see his car behind the Mercedes. That's how close he was.
Yeah, Russell Ward's car looks really twitchy there. We saw it again through Tower Corner, turn 13, just as we did in turn 1 on that previous run through there.
Dennis Lind, going back to the Dane who started this car, he's had to tame some monstrous cars in his career, driving in something called Danish Thundersport, where he won the championship several years ago. It looks like kind of a two-frame Camaro kind of situation. Oh boy, Ward goes wide. I'm not sure he's ever encountered a monster quite like Sebring.
It's quite the challenge. It's an eye-opener. You grow to love it and love the tradition, the history here. Please don't change. These concrete runways and these bumps through some of these corners, let's make it so rewarding when you do get it right and score a victory here.
Altoe is close, but Ward not giving him a gap to try and slide through. This fight for second overall continues to rage as we close in on the final 15 minutes here at Sebring. Altoe flashing the lights, maybe losing a bit of patience as we get deeper into this run, Calvin. We've seen these two dueling over the course of the last 10 minutes or so. Where's the spot to make the move if you're Altoe in the Lamborghini?
Well, I think it may take a little slip from Russell Ward because the car looks super twitchy right now. It looks like the balance has maybe gone away from him a little bit. So Altoe just needs to bide his time, but his pace may be forced a little bit because Venturini seems to be inching up on both of these drivers.
You can see with that track map there on the screen the difference between the leader, Caldarelli, that's the 3 car, and this fight for second, third, and you can throw fourth into the mix as Venturini has started to close in somewhat in the second K-Pax Racing car. Green one right there.
He just made up almost a second and a half on that previous tour around this circuit, so I think Ward is backing up a little bit, trying to find the handle on this race car. Altoe doesn't have enough pace to get by him right now, and it's allowing Venturini to close in on both of them.
This is the long run down the Ullman Straight, named for Alec Ullman, who we all have to thank for identifying Hendricks Field, the Army Air Corps Air Base. Used to train B-17 pilots back in the 40s as a place to host world-class sports car racing. How prescient that thought was. We've been coming here ever since, 71 years now.
Those classic concrete runways there forming the front straightaway here. And then as you make that transition off, there's that big bump, that big compression. High speed, they're probably just touching 110, 115 miles an hour as they're accelerating back through the apex of turn 1. Low speed corners here, down at about 60 miles an hour, rolling through turn 5, then back on the power, using a little bit of that curb. Big load there, you're constantly turning there as you're squeezing back on the power early.
That was Big Bend, turn 6, high-speed right-hander, full throttle for sure. Now the slowest turn on the track, the turn 7 hairpin. So it was pretty close, but not close enough as Russell Ward goes bounding over the curbs on exit, kicking up the dust.
Yes, watch the brake zone here for turn 10. I'll tell you, he may try and send it right now.
Looking there, looking, working to the outside here in turn 10, but he has to go the long way around. Can he get to the flank and stay there? Ward gives him room, but he has to fall back. Through Collier and heading towards Tower Turn. The battle for second continues to rage. Russell Ward, Giacomo Altaway, Giovanni Venturini closing in with under 15 minutes remaining in the penultimate race of the year. Andrea Caldarelli leading by 7.7 seconds. The fight is now for second, third, and fourth, with Russell Ward holding down the runner-up spot in his Windward Racing Mercedes, then a pair of Lamborghinis, but from rival teams. TR3 Racing in its first season in the Pro Class, our first race in the Pro Class of the season. But here is the championship leader in Pro-Am in Strife, a spin, Calvin. And Jason Harwood on a lunge to the inside, that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, he turns Fred Pordad there, so big concern is if there's any damage to that right rear corner of the Porsche. You see the side view mirror gets ripped off. Will that be a penalty to give that precious position back? Fred now has to get the car turned around, but this is allowed. I think it's a skew, right? Back on his tail.
Yes, as you closing in, but I think the gap was big enough that Pordad was able to stay ahead. So even without the stewards intervening and giving that spot back via penalty or something along those lines, should they decide, that's not a foregone conclusion, that that was avoidable contact. Still running fifth, that is enough. A little bit of extra drama though in the final 13 minutes.
Championships don't come easy, right?
No.
Having to sweat this one out.
Nor should they though. You want to have to earn them. And Altaway, if he wants second place, he's going to have to earn it as well. So close, and yet so far. It's one thing to get there to the bumper, but it's another thing to get by.
Yeah, Russell Ward is just being proactive in terms of positioning that Mercedes in the right spot into these brake zones, middle of the road.
Confirmation that that contact between Harwood and Pordad is under review.
Venturini has gotten close, but maybe he's starting to get that aero wash on the front end of his green Lamborghini Huracan.
Jan Halen, the co-driver with Fred Pordad. I'm sure he saw the replay. Amanda, what's going through his mind?
Oh, he saw the replay, and there was a sigh out from Jan Halen, and Calvin Fish just said championships don't come easy all the time. What's going through your thoughts right now?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, looked like a pretty good day. You know, after that. After the first stint, and the yellow comes at a bad time for us, and you know it's tough. You know, there's a lot of debris out there, and some of the guys with more experience can drive through that. The pickup on the tires may be a little easier, so we knew those first couple laps would be tough on us. It's unfortunate. Fred's got really good pace here this weekend, and it's never easy. You know.
Well, you spent this season alongside Fred Pordad. That's why you could almost wrap up this championship a whole event ahead of time. What does Fred have that allows him to approach adversity so well?
Yeah, I think it's all teamwork. You know, Fred's been with the team for many years, so have I, and it's just a good group of guys working together. And and Fred, just like all of us, I mean, Fred's learned a lot, and I think, like today shows again, I mean, he's got great pace. There's still some learning to do, but I know we have one of the best M's out there, and it'll come to us, but it might not be this weekend.
Well, the jury was assembled, the evidence presented, and the verdict came swiftly, Calvin.
Yeah, the 88 car of Harwood is going to take responsibility for that, so that'll be a drive-through penalty. That'll cost him 40 seconds, and that should give that fourth position back to Fred Pordad, so that should still be enough. By my math, I think a top 5 is all they need. They can afford to lose 15 points here today. They'll have the tiebreaker in terms of wins this year.
Scary moment just a few seconds ago. This is for 3rd overall. Altoe on the defensive, Venturini up the inside.
That's close to cutting down to that left rear.
And these two collect their checks from the same source. It's a couple of Lamborghini factory drivers. That could make things interesting.
Yes, that would not be a good day for either one of them if they cause the cars to have to hit pit lane.
Just 10 minutes remaining. There's a bit of breathing room to Russell Ward. He's not had much during his stint. Since that restart, he has been under assault, and all credit to him. The young Texan has been up to the challenge.
Yeah, just looking at these points again, a top 5 would tie them going in, but if the Racer's Edge car does score this victory here today, and should, I'm curious to know in terms of wins, does it count as a double win if it's double points in terms of the tiebreak, or a single win?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I suspect the answer is single.
Single, yeah.
But that is a good question.
Be close. So maybe a top 4 would be better, and he's about to be back into a top 4 position, Fred Pordad, when Harwood hits the pit lane for that penalty for avoidable contact.
Down to the final 10 minutes of the last traditional race distance race of the season. Again, coming up next in 2 weeks, the Indianapolis 8 hours, the first 3 hours of which pay points towards this championship. Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Altoe, untroubled by that lunge from Giovanni Venturini, kept it out wide, and had no reason to be overly concerned. Venturini too far back to make the move. But I'll tell you, it's going to be a massive grid of cars, about 40 or more in total. Many of them, the vast majority, GT3 cars with some big-time factory lineups, some of which have been announced. Others will be announced in the coming days. Full entry list expected on Friday of this coming week. All at one of the most historic and prestigious racetracks in the world, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Cannot wait to see what we have in store for the final round of the season. But still drama to unfold here at Sebring. The fight for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th continues.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Optima, Motul, and Skip Barber.
All by his lonesome. Andrea Caldarelli might get lonely out there with a lead like this, way out in front, but be used to it by now. This has been the theme of the season. Andrea Caldarelli and Jordan Pepper have been near perfect all year long. But behind him, the battle continues to rage. Russell Ward, Giacomo Altoe, and Giovanni Venturini, who has backed off a little bit here in recent laps. He might have taken his shot and ultimately set it back in line, or perhaps saving up something for one final lunge.
Russell Ward has done a great job in terms of hanging on as he now makes a little error coming off of turn 5. Drops those right side wheels, loses a bit of traction there.
But how much momentum does he lose? It doesn't seem like it's all that much. Altoe is close, but he's been this close before.
Yeah, Russell is withstanding this pressure beautifully, trying to hang on here for another 7 minutes to try and see that checkered flag and gain that runner-up position.
Dennis Lind looks on. He was involved in a furious duel himself late in the race yesterday. That was with Jan Halen. Again, Ward able to parry the thrust from Altoe.
Altoe's got a run going here. He's carving that corner a little bit better, know where to go with it. Just needs to set him up, jump on the power a little bit sooner, square off the corner.
Into the high-speed section of the track known as Bishop, right here.
Easy flat in one of these cars, all the way to the breaking point right here, down a gear. Throw it through the right-hander. Stay tight to the left to set up and square off. Russell's in there really compromised. Altoe's got a run, but he's on the outside. He's in the grass. This is going to give Venturini the run and get that position.
Well, he took his shot, but it didn't go down for him. Giacomo Altoe bouncing through the grass, rejoins the track just afterwards. Does that open up a chance now for Venturini to snag the second spot away from Russell Ward?
That was wild. There was almost a little mistake there by Russell. Got into turn 16, very shallow angle. Altoe didn't know where to go with it. Ended up on the flank of the left side of that Mercedes and ran off in the grass.
Caldarelli continues to lead by 15 seconds. Russell Ward, though, scrapping for second. Just over 5 minutes remaining in race 2 of the weekend at Sebring. Andrea Caldarelli has this race in control. The battle for second continues on, but just a few moments ago, a close call as Giacomo Altoe tried to go the long way around Russell Ward through the Le Mans complex.
Watch right here. Ward goes in super shallow there. Altoe gets the run, but he's on the outside. Runs out of room. Russell really didn't force him there. Just Altoe got in the gray a little bit and understeered off.
Well, you had to take a shot, and he had thrown several punches the way of Russell Ward, and Ward had been able to parry them. And had to try something a little different.
First mistake we've really seen from Altoe all season long, so that's just how intense this battle is right now. So Venturini, I think they'd be pretty happy here if he can squeeze through Russell Ward and make a K-Pax 1-2 finish here, celebrating another championship for the K-Pax squad, 5th driver's title to their history. They also picked up the manufacturers and the team championship yesterday as well.
And as we talked about yesterday, Calvin, this is a team that has had success winning manufacturing titles for brands as diverse as Volvo, Bentley, Porsche, McLaren. You can now add a Lamborghini to the mix. Their first year with the Raging Bull, looking right at home, and it seems like a part of the Lamborghini family for some time to come, if rumors are to be believed.
Yeah, it's a good fit. Lamborghini give great support to their customer racing teams, and Jim Huey gives that squad all of the tools and resources that they need outside of that to be so successful.
Venturini looks quick, but it doesn't look comfortable, does it? Just that little squirm under braking into 17, twitching over the bumps at the apex. Live telemetry for you. You can compare and contrast the Mercedes and the Lamborghini in real time with just over 3 minutes to go.
Should be 2 more laps for these leaders here. Caldarelli 16 seconds down the road. I'll tell you what, in that Pro-Am class, Taylor Hagler has got the lead, but Aaron Vogel is hanging on. Around 2.3 seconds now, 1.7 on that previous lap, so that gap was extended there. Salas has dropped away a little bit in 3rd. Pordad holds down 4th position right now. By my math, unofficially, that would be enough to secure the title, even though Taylor Hagler will jump up to 3 wins to equal what Fred Pordad and Jan Halen have had on the season in Pro-Am.
Now, it's amazing the improvement out of the Racers Edge team, and John Maracchi telling us early in the season that that's what they're expecting. These are young drivers they brought through their academy 1 year ago, but plugging them into a race situation at the GT3 level for the very first time this year. They knew there would be a learning curve, but it's amazing how quickly that learning curve accelerated, especially in the second half of the year when the races started happening with more regularity. I think that was a big boost, especially for Taylor, because she's in the car for all of them. But you think about what Jacob Abel has to deal with and what Dakota Dickerson has dealt with, being out of the car, not in for the full season. They would go months at a time in between races, and a chance to get in with some regularity, that really helps them advance the learning curve and pick up the pace throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, spot on. And for Jacob Abel, jumping back into a lightweight single-seater and then trying to transition back to a tin-top GT3 machine with a little bit more weight, a little bit more roll, different dynamic to the driving, but I think he did a superb job. Dakota Dickerson is the star of the future, if not today, because his performances this weekend and at Road America were just superb.
Aaron Vogel, too, en route to what would be her 3rd podium of the season. Didn't sound super optimistic based on the pace and testing earlier this week. Yesterday was a bit of a struggle at times. But here in race 2, they found something, and this car has turned into the pace setter from the DXDT Racing stable. White flag, by the way, has flown with under a minute to go. Caldarelli came through without enough time on the clock to do an additional lap, so we are in the final lap of this race. Caldarelli out in front by 17 seconds. Russell Ward, though, continues to fend off Giovanni Venturini. Giacomo Altaway trying to get back into that mix, but he's still 1.8 seconds behind at last check.
Yeah, battle for second is still on across the stripe. It was half a second between Ward and Venturini. Caldarelli, Pepper looking for their 9th win of the year. Can they make it the perfect 10 at Indy? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, that would be tougher to do. I assume they will be entered as an Intercontinental GT Challenge entry. Nevertheless, from the drop of the green flag at Sonoma, the first race of the season, Jordan Pepper and Andrea Caldarelli announced their intentions. Ever since, it has been total domination en route to a Drivers' Championship, Teams' Championship, heck, a Manufacturers' Championship as well. Picture perfect once again from Caldarelli and Pepper around Sunset Bend, and they head to the checkered flag for yet another race win in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Caldarelli and Pepper win again.
Exclamation point, fastest lap of the race for that car. 2:02.4 by Caldarelli on the last lap.
Here we go, fight for what? This is actually for third.
Yeah.
Venturini has dropped back into the clutches of Altaway. Ward sweeps through. He will take second. It looks like Venturini will fend off Altaway at the line, but that got interesting. Just 0.3 of a second separating them. Now it's Taylor Hagler looking for her 3rd win of the season. It would be the 2nd for her co-driver this weekend, Dakota Dickerson. She did everything she could to stay in the championship mix. It won't be enough, but she does claim victory for Racer's Edge.
Little twitch there coming through 17. She had to catch that slide. Nice job. Salas rounds out the podium in Pro-Am. We'll look for Fred Pordat. If he holds on to that 4th position, unofficial, I think that seals the title for he and Jan Halen.
Here is the leader in the AM class, last car running. AF Corsa denied victory for the first time all season yesterday, but won't take long to reclaim the top step of the podium. JC Sada, as well as Conrad Grunwald, doing all they need to do to win yet again, and it is official across the line. Fred Pordat comes home 4th, more than enough to clinch a championship for himself, and Jan Halen in the Pro-Am class for Wright Motorsports. Continue to watch AF Corsa's JC Sada. He makes his way around to take yet another checkered flag.
Nice run here for JC. Conrad very much in the fight early on. Shame to see the Triazzi car have that incident, because they put in a really wonderful debut performance here this weekend.
Around turn 17 for the final time. AF Corsa, JC Sada, Conrad Grunwald win yet again, this time at Sebring.
Is that 11 wins on the year?
Believe it must be. Only been denied once. CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race to Jan Halen, who brings home a championship along with Fred Pordat. Wow, what a season for this car. Only the 2nd time they finished off the podium in class.
Right.
All season long. That kind of consistency is hard to beat. I know they'd love to get more wins, and there's been a little frustration shown at times that they weren't standing on the top step, but the ultimate goal every season is to win the championship. They've won their share of races, 3 of them on the year. And when you stack that kind of consistency together, Calvin, it's almost impossible to beat.
And for Fred, his 2nd consecutive championship, coming off an AM class championship last year with Max Root, same team, of course. So congratulations to him. Tough for him, as Jan Halen and his teammate alluded to. You know, getting that pickup under the caution period and going back to green with those pros behind you is a very intimidating situation. And he didn't want to make the big mistake, and by doing so, being a bit more conservative, allowed a few of the Pro-Am cars through, but he still sat there in 4th position, then came under attack by Jason Harwood, and that turned him around, but with that penalty, back to the top 4, and that's enough.
It's all about knowing your objectives, and the objective coming in today was finish 5th or better. Simple as that. So why put up the fight? Why take the risk? Really heady drive, as you would expect from a man with the educational acumen of Fred Pourdad, a doctor at a very high level, and a rapid race car driver. AM champion last year, steps up to Pro-Am and looks right at home. Credit to Wright Motorsports and Jan Halen, too, for all that they've done to help shepherd Fred Pourdad along as he makes this transition from single-make racing. That's basically what his background was prior to last year, with a few exceptions, into the GT3 field.
Yeah, and that's a big step up. So it's a beast of a race car, and you come to a racetrack like that, it is a superb challenge. But he's been up to the task. He's been thrown in at the deep end on occasion and gotten his elbows out, has not been intimidated. And he doesn't want to give it up. You saw that down in the brake zone for turn 7. He saw Harwood down to the inside, still went for the apex, got turned, and the penalty was given to the 88 Lamborghini.
And ultimately, they're back in the 7th spot. That's not representative of the pace they displayed throughout the weekend, and certainly in race 2. You had to feel for the Zalus crew here in race 2 of the weekend today. Victory Lane interviews coming up in just a moment. Andrea Caldarelli winning again, but denied of a K-Pax 1-2 by Russell Ward, who put together an immense defensive effort to hang on to second after that restart.
Yeah, and as tight as Altaway got to Venturini there on the final lap, I'd have to feel that maybe Venturini had a run at Ward. He just missed the corner, ran a little bit wide, and that's what made it so close to that final podium position there.
Pro-Am win to Racer's Edge. They're starting to rack them up as we get deeper into the season. Taylor Hagler, her 3rd. The 2nd for Dakota Dickerson. That'll help Hagler lock down the 2nd spot at the very least in the Pro-Am Championship. Rodrigo Salas, a nice run to the podium for Compass Racing as well. They come home 7th overall, but 3rd in Pro-Am. Fred Pourdad clinching the championship along with Jan Halen. An 8th overall result, 4th in the class, more than enough to do so. David Askew, Ryan Dial settled for 5th after contact early on. That damaged that race car. It never was the same. Didn't have time to replace the bodywork during the pit stop, but still salvaging a 5th place result ahead of Frank Gannett. He and Drew Stavely, decent run all things considered, a top 10 overall and 6th in class. Their progression continues.
Yeah, I think that was a really solid weekend for that G3 Ian Lacey Racing group with the Aston Martin. It's been a steep learning curve for that group, stepping up to GT3 competition. New brand that they're working with as well, but I think they'll be encouraged by this weekend, and they'll go to Indy trying to finish off with a flourish, but puts them in good stead as they look towards the 2022 season.
Let's start hearing from some of our class winners, Amanda.
Oh, and everyone was collected here after the race chatting about what they just saw. And Jordan, you guys wrap up the championship here. You get a race win as you head to Indy. How does this change the approach for your team?
No, it was the first race we could run a bit stress-free without the championship in mind. So it was really awesome. And, you know, our boys worked so hard all season. You know, I got a big shout out to Seb, our engineer. He's a legend. Obviously Matt, John, Sam, all the crew, Scott, this one's for them, you know, they're the guys who don't get mentioned often, so it's nice to get them a victory and nice to reward them and show them that we can win it whether we find them for the championship or not. So really, really cool going to Indy.
Well, Andrea, you guys, as I said, you just locked it up here in Sebring. You go into Indy. When you've had this much success, how does it continue to motivate?
Oh, well, there is always next motivation. It's always to win races. So I think, yeah, we use this race a little bit of like a test. As Jordan said, it was like kind of stress-free race. So we try a few things on setup, and I think it worked pretty well. The car was really good. Well done to the guys at K-Pax. Lamborghini scored a course. This is really a team effort, and it's another win in the book.
So, well, it takes the win. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Once again, the top spot to that duo. When they were announced, I mean, I think everybody stopped and took notice, especially given some of the performances late in the year from Jordan Pepper last year, I should say. Andrea Caldarelli needed no introduction. Pepper, maybe a bit less known, but we saw what he could do at Indianapolis and several other big races last year. This is the points table, and that goes to show exactly the situation we've been talking about. Caldarelli and Pepper dominant.
Yeah, it's quite the stretch up with their teammates, essentially in identical equipment with the same car. So really impressive run. Yeah, Jordan Pepper, the team knew what they had in their hands. They saw him perform in that Bentley last year. He won at Bathurst last year, as you mentioned, a great run at Indy until he ran afoul of some lap traffic. So they believed in him. He's rewarded them with that faith by really being a great teammate to Andrea Caldarelli, who's more of a proven number in these Lamborghinis.
It's been a great run of races for Racer's Edge. Taylor Hagler's been at the center point of all of them. Dakota Dickerson very fast as well, and Amanda is there with our Pro-Am winners.
And as you said, it's another win for Taylor Hagler. And Taylor, I talked to you prior to getting in the car. You were watching Dakota bounce back from what happened during his drive. But when you're in that position, you know what you wanted. You said he was going to go after Jan Halen, and you needed Fred Pordat. How did you mount that attack?
Honestly, I don't know if he had an issue or he just got startled at the start with all of the other pro drivers, but I was just able to follow another car through and just kind of make a pass on the outside of 7 and got it to stick. And from there, that was it.
And Dakota, on your drive, we talked about your composure. You get another win with this team as well. When you look at the progress you've made this season, what would you say is the biggest factor to your race?
Honestly, it's the support from the Racer's Edge Motorsports team and Acura. I think they've built a program for young drivers like myself and Taylor to come up through the ranks and compete at the top level successfully. So it's been a pleasure working with them, and I'm glad we can continue on into the Indianapolis 8-hour. Hopefully we can continue the success and get another win there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
3 wins in the last 6 races for Racer's Edge Motorsports. They pick up another one here in race 2 of the weekend at Sebring.
Today's coverage is brought to you in partnership with Mercedes-AMG, Porsche, and 511.
I'm excited to see what that Racer's Edge car can do, Calvin, in the 8-hour. It'll be the first time that all 3 of the drivers that have driven throughout the course of the season get the chance to run together. That is the plan with Jacob Abel, Dakota Dickerson, and Taylor Hagler. The way they're driving right now, the way the Racer's Edge team is executing, they might be one to keep an eye on in what we expect to be a stacked Pro-Am class.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting adventure for all 3 of those drivers, and a new learning curve as well, right? An 8-hour event. I don't think any of them have done anything over a couple of hours, so that's going to be an important impression in their career development. And the car's really strong. Let's see if it's as suited to Indianapolis as it was here, but they seem to be finding a sweet spot with that car. I mean, it is really at the sharp end right now, and when it's dialed in, both of those drivers can truly deliver.
These are the Pro-Am driver points. 52 separates Fred Pordat and Jan Halen from Taylor Hagler. Only 50 points left on offer, so as we've said several times, that's championship clinched for Pordat and Halen. But Hagler still in the mix for the 2nd spot. And what a result that would be for her in her first season of GT3 racing. Highlights from the race here, Calvin. Jan Halen started on pole and accelerated away, but things got dicey early on lap 1.
It really was there. Look at the elbows around there going down into turn 1. That's Dennis Linde elbowing the Compass Racing machine, and then Ryan Dial just misses his breaking point a little bit, gets into the back of Murray. That turns Dakota Dickerson the wrong way into turn 3, and later in the lap, here we see him. Madison Snow side by side there with Michael Cooper, and he gets turned around.
Dakota Dickerson's comeback drive. This was one of the many passes he made. That one was on Robbie Foley. Here's a move towards the front of the field. This is to take the lead. Andrea Caldarelli able to get by Russell Ward. Big crash here. Charlie Scardina, luckily, able to walk away from the Triarci Competizione Ferrari, but then on the ensuing restart, Fred Pordat, a Pro-Am class car leading a host of Pro cars, and they start to jump on through. Here's a big moment late in the race. Pordat spun around off the nose of Jason Harwood. Harwood was penalized for that, but nevertheless, Hayden was able to keep that car in position to clinch the championship. Scary moment there for Alto A. He bounced back, but not enough to challenge this car. Caldarelli and Pepper victorious yet again at Sebring International Raceway. Taylor Hagler, Dakota Dickerson win in the Pro-Am class, and that's the Racer's Edge team up on the fence to cheer the car home. Exciting racing in both of our events this weekend at Sebring. Race 2 certainly no exception, and now we turn our attention to 8 hours of racing at Indianapolis in 2 weeks. So much to look forward to with the Indy 8 Hour, the second round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. But still, some things to wrap up here in Sebring, including a chat with the AM Class winners.
Well, in race number 2, JC Sada and Conrad Gruo were able to return here and get the win in Sebring. And when you look at the race that you had here today, what will be the highlight for you, JC?
Well, you know, it was an endurance race, so it was just to stay clean and stay on track and avoid any accidents. Unfortunately, our competitor had a mishap, and we feel bad about that. This is not the way we wanted to win, but it is what it is. Such is racing, right? So I'm just lucky that we kept the car on the track and no incidents. The track was pretty hot and very slippery, so we had to tiptoe around some corners, but at the end we made it, and here we are.
And for you, Conrad, what was the highlight?
Survival. This is such a rough place. It was hot and slippery out there. You know, the tires were falling off at the end. I think everybody was struggling, so I'm really happy that we made it through. Thanks.
Exciting racing all weekend long at Sebring. But this weekend is done, and it's 8 hours at Indianapolis on the Brickyard that we look forward to. We'll talk to you there. So thus ends an exciting weekend of racing here, Calvin, at Sebring International Raceway, and it sets the stage for an endurance event in Indianapolis, kind of bereft of the championship drama, which in a way helps us focus in on the race itself, the Intercontinental GT Challenge, powered by Pirelli, second round, the Indianapolis 8 Hour.
Yeah, I think it clears the slate a little bit, and I think it allows all of these teams who are going to go there, and sometimes they're thinking, well, about what happens at the 3 hour mark versus the 8 hour mark if you're in contention for a championship here. Doesn't seem like we've got any of those titles left on the line, so it'll allow those teams to really focus, maybe work with their driver lineups in a more normal way rather than have to hold back that third driver till after the 3 hour mark. So I think it's going to be an exciting race. We're looking at a massive field. We're expecting the announcement of the full entry here later this week, so that's something to look forward to. All of the big manufacturers on that global stage are going to be represented, and they're going to bring their top guns with them.
And they won't have to deal with the championship pressure at Indianapolis. They clinch it around early. Fred Pordad and Jan Halen are with Amanda.
Well, Cal, I'm going to use your words one more time for Fred Pordad. Cal said during the broadcast that sometimes championships just don't come easy. You knew you had to hold on to fifth or better. Talk about that drive for yourself and just the panic you may have been under.
Well, Jan did such a good job in stint one. He gave me a nice gap, but of course, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I get in the car, I come out to a full course yellow. And of course, then we all packed up, and I had 4 really competitive pros behind me. So unfortunately, I picked up so much clag and debris on the tires, I couldn't steer for the first 4 corners. So I lost a lot of positions. And of course, we had a little contact with another car, and I thought, what else can go wrong? But you know, we brought it home, not quite the race we wanted, but the championship feels good, and I want to thank Wright Motorsport, Jan. I want to thank my family for putting up with all this. I missed my daughter and my father's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, you guys. But yeah, just really happy to be here overall.
A championship for a present isn't so bad of a gift, and Jan, this championship you guys get to celebrate, get to go into Indy without the pressure. Will that change the approach for this team?
Yeah, definitely. I think now we can go into Indy with a slightly different strategy than than what would have. But yeah, first I just super happy to be here. Happy to be here with Fred, and he's a good friend and longtime teammate here at Wright Motorsports. So couldn't be happier to be here with Fred and the team, and just super stoked to win the championship.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Great season from those two. So consistent. I know we talked about it before, Calvin, but it's just remarkable, their ability to launch podium after podium, and it put them in a position where a 5th place was more than enough to clinch a title even before you head to the final race, which, by the way, pays double points. So they're effectively 2 races early in clinching this championship.
Well, when you only finish off the podium twice all season long, as tough as this competition is, that's the level that they're running at. But it's not a surprise when you look at all of the ingredients there with the team, their experience running in endurance events, admittedly only with one pit stop, but they're top of the tree when it comes to that. And I think just the relationships there. I mean, Jan Halen has been there a long time with Wright Motorsports. He comes to Sebring. He's got so much experience here, winning a 12-hour race last year, finishing on the podium this year. So that allows Fred Portad to soak up all of that knowledge from John Wright, the engineering squad there, and from his teammate. So you'd naturally feel with the Porsche, it's so well suited to a track like this with the bumps where it's all about getting the power down off some of these corners. It's the perfect fit. So in some ways, it's not surprising, but even so, to execute and get the results and get that championship so easily, so early, should I say, is a remarkable achievement.
Those are the M-Class winners, J.C. Sada, Conrad Grunwald. Been a really good pairing this year. And they've got the backing of a fantastic team behind them in AF Corsa, which has certainly helped their effort, but this has been a good driving tandem, and I think they've embraced the fact that some challenges have started to arrive. We expect to see them at the 8-hour, and there should be several cars in the AM class for them to contend with.
Yep, that's going to be a big battle. It was great just to see two Ferraris running nose to tail there for the AM class leader early in this race. So that's what we'd love to see in the AM class. Certainly Conrad and JC have had things all their own way this year. Only finished off the winner's podium once this year, but still a great testimony to that team. Great to see AF Corsa back here on North American soil as well.
Exactly right. It's been a nice boost to the championship. Trophies up high there for the podium, not just the AM class, of course, but Pro-Am mixed in as well. There at the center, Taylor Hagler, Dakota Dickerson. Third time for Taylor, second for Dakota on the left. And another podium for Aaron Vogel and Michael Cooper. And you know, we've had some history made this year. Aaron became the first female driver to win a class in GT3 competition in what is now SRO America competition. The next week, the next race, I should say, that was at VIR. Then at Road America, we saw Taylor Hagler become the second. I wonder if we've ever had two female drivers on the same podium together before.
And a 1-2 at that.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Both of them drove exceptionally good stints there towards the end. It looked like Aaron might be closing in on Taylor late in that race, but Taylor redoubled her efforts and pulled out that gap, able to hang on to the victory by just under 2 seconds. And I think that's that Aaron Vogel-Michael Cooper pairing. I was kind of saying it earlier. They've emerged as the leaders in the DXDT racing stable here as of late. Part of that has to do with the absence of Kurtz and Brown. We expect them to be back for the 8-hour, along with a third driver to be named publicly elsewhere. But it seems like they've really hit on something, and they've been the ones up there challenging for podiums and wins in the second half of the year.
No, it's been a solid run, and coming off the chemistry of last year, running in GT4 competition, big step up, but you got that continuity between Michael and Aaron, so they work well together. Michael's a stud behind the wheel, really fast, and he understands all about that Pro-Am combination in terms of setting that car up, so it's a little bit compromised, maybe not as edgy, but enabling his teammate to be comfortable behind the wheel. And as you said, we expect to see George Kurtz. He was watching the races here this weekend on his road to recovery, and he's anticipating at least being back for the 8 hours here in a couple of weeks, along with Colin Brown, and someone who I think will certainly get the job done alongside that driver pairing.
Yeah, we might know who that is, but it's not our news to announce, so we'll let that trickle out through the official sources. But definitely a lineup to keep an eye on. Certainly one that had some success last year with George and Colin in their class at the 8-hour. But as good as the race was, this grid this year should basically double what we saw in 2020 at the 8-hour. And the challenge will be much higher across all the classes, GT3 and GT4, which will be part of the mix too, which I'm excited about, the mixed class part of it. There's a big celebration, spraying that champagne at the famed podium here at Sebring International Raceway, your pro class podium. Couple of K-Pax cars, but Windward Racing splitting them, and you have to wonder what might have been for them. They had an issue of some kind yesterday, a technical problem. Thought they might have been there in with a shout. Didn't get to see their full potential in race 1, but got a decent sense of it, I think, in race 2.
Yeah, really strong performance by Winwood Racing once again all season long. In fact, they've been a threat for the victories, and Russell Ward really stepped up today. He held on to that runner-up position, wouldn't give it up to drivers with a lot more experience behind him, with Venturini and Altoe putting on the pressure at the end of this race.
12 races down, just one to go, and it's an 8-hour endurance festival at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's coming your way in 2 weeks' time as we wind down the SRO America season. Thanks so much to our entire broadcast crew. For Amanda, for Calvin, I'm Ryan Marine. Thanks to you for tuning in. So long from Sebring.